What happens when an outsider destroys the balance of this land?
Is this another one of your riddles, old man?
A test, perhaps.
All right, and for tip number 1, we are going to be covering a very, very safe trade where you can look to assassinate a target and get out in a very, very sticky situation where there might be a couple of different enemies. So we are going to start off this trade with a E into W. If you did not know, you can E and then W, and the E will still catch in the Twilight Shroud as long as you are pressing it relatively quickly after it. So how the trade is going to look, we're going to go E, W, we're going to go R1, auto, Q, R2, E2, and we're going to be able to do dash back to our Shroud. And then obviously combining that, if you would like, to make it even further away, you can look for a E, W, flash, R, auto, Q, R2, E2, and it will just get you completely off the screen after assassinating a enemy target in that situation. Now, obviously, you are not utilizing the great AP scalings that are coming out of your E's in this very defensive situation. We are using it as a defensive tool as opposed to a offensive tool, and that will wrap up tip number 1 for Akali. All right, for tip number 2, we're going to be going over a hyper-aggressive combo that you can look to utilize on enemy champions. This is going to be a great way to fully utilize the 100% plus AP scaling coming out of your E1 and E2. Now, it is a very, very essential. Even if you decide that this isn't the combo that you want to look to utilize in your fights, you need to make sure that you are hitting the E2 before you are throwing out your R2, because your A2 is the biggest damaging ability in your kit outside of the R2. So it is going to look a little bit like this. We are going to R1 in, ensuring our shuriken flip is going to hit R1, E1, E2, Q, and then we can R out and look to follow up as needed in these different situations. But again, it is very important that you are ensuring the E1 hits on your R1 and that you are E2ing in before you are R2ing, because you want to have as little health left on the target as possible. And then also using your R2 to both assassinate the target and also to get out and get away from danger is going to be a very effective way to play out the combo as well. And again, utilizing your Q and your passive damage as needed in the different fight states will be important. And that will wrap up tip number 2 for a call. All right, and getting into tip number 3, we're essentially going to be going over the decision tree and how you should be playing out these early trades without your ultimate. So we always want to be throwing out our Qs on the maximum range, because this is going to slow the enemy, as well as going to allow you to get an empowered auto as quickly as possible. So we are going to throw out our Q, get the empowered auto, auto Q, get the empowered auto, and then whenever enemy champions are looking to trade back on you, because you are going to have a range advantage on a lot of melee champions, they are going to run straight at you. This is when you punish them with your E and then get the extra damage coming out of your E2. And the E1 is going to reset your assassin's mark on the enemy champion. So making sure that this becomes a very, very fluid motion and trading pattern is going to be a great way to start mastering Akali. So again, staying on the outer limits of your Q. Looking for the empowered auto, Q, empowered auto, and then Eing on any kind of auto attack that they are looking to proc on you, or enemy champion spell or skill shot that they are looking to do. Maybe a gangplank barrel, maybe a Morgana Q is coming out. This is when you are going to be looking to do your E1 to dodge, and then back in with E2, and then obviously punishing with W and R as you see fit in those certain situations. But again, the most important thing to understand with that tip is kiting them out with your increased ranges of your Q and your empowered auto attacks, and dancing on the edge of this circle that comes up is going to be a great way to maximize the amount of damage you are putting out on Akali. And that will wrap up tip number 3. All right, and getting into tip number 4, we're going to look to utilize Akali's full terrain scaling and how she can look to be a very, very strong champion. So how you want to look to utilize this? You want to do your W Shroud near wall, E out. If the enemies follow you with any mobility or flashes, you E2 back out. I can't recall how many times I have gotten free flashes for this very, very simple combo. Look to utilize this in different areas. And making sure when you are in very sticky situations where you're getting chased down by enemies, running to areas with walls is going to be a great way to get out of some rough situations where enemy champions, particularly that are very immobile, maybe something like a Trundle or something like a Garen that cannot follow you over walls. And that will wrap up tip number 4 for Akali. All right, getting into tip number 5, a lot of Akalis are very, very strong at lane, and they kind of fall off a bit when they get into team fights where they can get focused down. So there are a couple things you really want to look to utilize when you are playing Akali in these team fights. The first thing you want to understand is coming from flanks is always going to be a very, very strong way to approach these team fights, because the enemies know what you're looking to do, and they know that you're going to look to try to assassinate their squishies. They will try and peel you if you just look to fight front to back. So utilizing Oracle's Lens and Control Wards is going to be a great way to get a flank on the enemy champions, and then utilizing whichever trade combo that you want to do, whether the first or the second one, you always want to look to get a flank on the enemies and making sure that you are going into your tab and finding out who is the strongest person currently on the enemy team and focusing them for assassination in the different team fights. Obviously, you want to wait for your enemies and your allies to commit into a team fight, and this is going to be a great way to add more distraction and make sure that 4 people just don't turn on you, and you want to essentially use your allies as meat bags to allow you to carry. They are a great resource for distracting enemy champions. And that will wrap up my final tip, guys. If you have any questions, you can hit me up in the comments down below, and as always, take it easy.